Whoa.
So that was my very first plane that I made. Well, at least it looked like a plane. Shortly after, though, it kinda crashed.
Oh shoot, turbulence.
Uh-oh.
So if you noticed on this channel, I always build unique planes. I mean, they fly like a plane, but they don't necessarily look like a airliner, as to say. For example, I have this pink foam plane. I have this cardboard plane I made back when I was 10 or 12. And of course, I made a plate that flies.
It's a plate?
A
Are you
plate.
kidding me? A foam plate? Would it fly? Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? Oh my god, it's like a bumblebee. It flies.
And then the original poster board plane. And so I wanted to take a new crack at building a plane that actually looks like a plane. So first, as you can see, I just made a basic drawing of a plane. It's pretty simple. I then started tracing out the body on a piece of white foam board. I then cut out this foam and then put the piece I cut out on the foam board again, traced it, and cut it out again to make two pieces of the same. Once I made the basic shape of the body, the next step was making the wing. So I basically traced out a rectangular piece out of 1/2 inch insulation foam. And then I cut a smaller rectangular piece and glued that on the front of the wing in hopes to make a kind of airfoil so that this plane would have some kind of lift to it. Next was making the rudder and Elevon combination for the back of the plane that will help it go up, down, left, and right. I started off by just cutting the flaps, the things that move on the plane, and then I cut out the rudder and the Elevon holder. Here is all the parts that we have so far. We have the main body of the plane, the two foam pieces. We have the wing and the smaller piece of the wing, and we have the rudder parts and the elevator parts. After that, I glued together the two foam pieces and sprayed two stripes of yellow to add some color to the plane. I also glued on the final front piece of the wing to create that aerodynamic shape and sanded the front of the wing. After I completed the physical parts of the plane, the next part was focusing on the electronics and the mechanics that goes behind it. So for this build, I'm using a 2200 LiPo battery. I'm using a 30 amp ESC. I'm also using this receiver with the Turnigy 9X transmitter. I'm also using two 9-gram servos with a D350 750 kilovolt motor. So just a basic setup of all electronics in the plane. I first connect the motor to the ESC with 3 bullet connectors. I then connect the battery to this ESC with the XT60 connector. And then I plug in the wire coming out of the ESC into the receiver so that it can give the motor a signal. And then as you can see, the motor starts to spin when I give throttle off the transmitter. Next, I connect the servos to the receiver as well. And then now the two servos work. Next, I built the motor mount for the plane. This was done by simply putting a sheet of poster board that I cut directly onto the front of the plane. I mounted the motor on a piece of wood and then drilled through the wood and put bolts on the other side. I then cut this wood out to make the piece of wood shorter, and then here I dropped the motor accidentally, so I'm just making sure the motor's all good and reliable still. Here are some pictures of the motor mounted to the front of the plane. I simply glued on the wooden piece directly onto the piece of foam board that I had put on the front of the plane. I then cut out a small hole in the body of the plane so that the ESC could fit snugly and create a more aerodynamic shape for the plane. I then went ahead and started building the combination of the rudder and elevator for the back of the plane. So I first just mounted a servo on the piece of foam and then used popsicle sticks as my control horns. I then did the same thing for my rudder. I then hot glued this onto the back piece of the foam of the airplane. Alright guys, so this is the plane so far. I painted 2 yellow stripes to just make it look kind of good. I have a elevator mounted vertical stabilizer. The servos are connected on there. I have the basic body of a plane, and then on the front I mounted my motor mount with the prop. I have my receiver right here. The only thing left to do is mount the wing, the pink wing, which is to mount the pink wing. And for now I'm deciding whether I want to mount the pink wing with rubber bands or if I want to glue it on the plane. The problem is, if I glue it on the plane, is that there's a very small amount of surface area on the top of the plane, and the lower amount of surface area there is, the less stability there is for the plane. So I don't know, I'll decide. Because with rubber bands, the problem is also that this foam isn't really durable, so the rubber bands might damage the side of the foam. Structural wise, I added duct tape on the bottom of the plane, along the bottom side of the plane, to add more, we can move more slick through the air to add more durability on the bottom. I'm thinking of taping up the entire body of the plane with tape, as I did in the front. This will again add more integrity to the plane. But if I want to glue the wing on, I have to do that before I actually tape the plane. So I need some time to think. So I ended up deciding to mount the wing with rubber bands, and here's a quick video of me just taping the entire body of the plane. To avoid marks in the wing, I added cardboard pieces on either side so the rubber bands could hinge onto these instead of digging into the foam. And then here's the rubber bands connected to the plane. And then we're finally done with our plane. These are some pictures of the plane. You can see that I mounted the wing on it, the battery is connected to it with a piece of Velcro, and I'm all ready to fly. Oh, by the way, for the landing gear, I simply just put these water bottles on pieces of foam. But then I found out that it wasn't high enough because the 12-inch prop was hitting the ground. So I stuck these pencils in. And yeah, it was a pretty good landing gear. Alright, hey guys. Here is my Big Bertha. I call this plane the Big Bertha. But this is the maiden flight of the plane. As you can see, I have the landing gear attached to the plane. I have the wing attached with rubber bands. I have a remote control here. It's a little bit windy day, but let's see how this works out. Alright guys, on that the landing gear came off, as you can see, but that was not a bad first flight. I couldn't really control it, it was kind of wobbly. Let's try again though. Alright guys, that was definitely tail heavy. It was like this. To compensate for that, I'm going to try to trim the Elevons down a little bit. As you can see, I trimmed the Elevons down a little bit. Let's see if this works. Alright you guys, on that last time, unfortunately, the plane did bend, break right here, level out. Definitely want to add some kind of flaps or some support here. But yeah, stay tuned for part 2.
Okay. Whoa, it actually flies good now. Where did it go? Careful. Last try.